except the good numbers.
I think they should go back to the old one ball above the belt, by the way, because the top of the strike zone is now hitters get so exposed up there.
Well, that's what happened with Kris for almost 2 years now. We had to come up with a plan to flatten out his swing to have the right amount of vertical angle in the bat without chopping down and hitting ground balls. He's hitting too many ground balls this year compared to his past. So imagine if he was elevating the ball a little bit better. That instead of hitting 310, he'd be hitting 350. But we learned how to handle some of those high fastballs, and it wasn't really a hard change at all. You look at Pujols and how he kept his hands high through the zone, and how we controlled the strike zone from the top down instead of entering the strike zone, the height of the strike zone, at belt high, and then the hands are below the ball, and there's no way you catch up at that point because it's just too hard. So it's
let's get into that a little bit. I want to know. I'm curious about the dynamic of the hitter recognizing the adjustment needs to be made, because a player at his caliber, he's rookie of the year, MVP, like he's good, right? He's had success.
Good is an understatement. Let's clarify.
Well, I mean, he's played at the highest level of the game. He was, MVP of the league. Like, you're the best player in the league.
He's what I like to refer to as a dude. Let's clarify that. Okay,
yes.
Let's just make that clear. I don't say that about many people, just FYI. I'm not saying it because you're on the call.
Well, I appreciate that.
So to go from –
and you kind of earned it too.
Making a change from something that's worked for so long is risky. Like how did that happen? How did it get to the point that you guys determined, like, all right, now it's time to make a change? Because you get like a kid that is a good high school player and he goes to college and he fails and he's reluctant to make changes. Like where's the threshold to make the choice? Like, yeah, now it's time to make an adjustment.
Well, obviously the numbers dictate that. And so the way we did it, I mean, Jack Nicklaus used to use a lot of visual techniques. You would envision his shots shaping down the fairway. He had to hit a left to right when he had to right. Well, we envisioned the ball path coming in. Where is it? Looked at it up in the strike zone, and then tried to, we put it on a tee and then tried to match the bat path with that ball path. You looked at the Ted Williams thing where pitches at the top of the strike zone come down at approximately 4 degrees. Okay. What's that? That's a number. Well, what we try to do is shape the swing, to have the bat come up 4 degrees to the ball, not down, not level, but precisely what does that swing look and feel like? And then get after it 200 times, hit that pitch in the strike zone up and in 200 times. See what it feels like. What he was really developing was what that first move, what his trigger was to that. Okay. So was it a downward move? It was a slightly downward move. Instead of dropping, your elbow into that arm slot that everybody works from, that 90-90 position, was to, before he got to that, what was the move before he got to that slot? And then trying to figure it out and how to apply it, feel it. So, and we had the hit track so we could see it happening. And especially on the tee, you could really see it. And then we put it on the outside part of the plate at the same height, and then just over the middle of the plate, and just keep doing that at that height. And he would naturally react to anything lower in the strike zone. And his instincts would take over at that point. So if it was a down low pitch and he wanted to hit it, the vertical angle would be increased just through instinct. Then we put it on the machine and tried to replicate, something with movement, up high in the zone. And you understand what that trigger was. So that was really a small adjustment. When you think about it, we're talking inches, anywhere between 1/8 of an inch to 6 inches of hand height coming through the strike zone. I mean, that's a small amount, but, pitchers can exploit that pretty easily, by making the ball move a certain way. It's the same way as trying to lay off outside sliders that hang on the corner and break out of the zone. What type of swing do you have to hit that ball? Well, that seems to be a harder pitch to hit, for me anyways, is that pitch that just nips the front of the plate at the knees on the outside corner. And so those were the things. We were trying to connect the dots with what he was feeling, in his hands to what he was seeing in the pitch. And it was just repetition from there. It really wasn't, I don't want to say it's as big a deal, that it was a big deal. It's really not as big a deal as it appears to be. But good hitters know how to make adjustments, as Kris was talking about earlier, and they're not afraid to try different things. I worked with James Loney here in the off season. He had probably 25 or 30 hours with him. He was trying to create a home run stroke, because I measured him and showed him what his launch angle was and what his bat path was in slow motion. I said, if you're going to get the ball in the air, you have to change the bat path, and then he started connecting the dots. He never was taught that way, so we started. Now I know how to feel. I know what Ted Williams was talking about, how to get that top hand under the bottom hand coming through and to keep the hands high so we could create some lift. And he was doing pretty good, but he never hooked up.
Well, it's funny you mentioned him. I was supposed to play in Sugarland with him a couple years ago. We ended up missing each other. I have like a million questions to ask you. First thing, Kris has always hit a ton of homers. Like he hit a ton of homers in college, right? Like high school, like he hit a bunch of homers, I'm assuming too. Was there ever a time, and I love everything you're saying, by the way, it's incredible. Was there ever a time where he was did he ever think down? Did you guys ever talk about swing down, foot down early? Any like the traditional old school stuff? Never, right?
Yeah,
so,
no.
I just assumed that. I guess so. He always understood how to get. So for me, when Bobby started introducing this stuff to me, is when it all kind of clicked. Because I was the opposite till I was like 26, and then Bobby was just a pain in the ass enough to like get me to pay attention to like what it meant to get the barrel behind the ball. So I went from a guy that handled up and in plus velo to like all of a sudden now like I understood down and away, and like it opened up a whole new world. My numbers went like this because now I was hitting for better average because I was going the other way, and I could leave to right center at that point. So, like was there ever a time for Kris where like when did he start becoming aware of the fact that like spin rate fastballs at the top of the zone were a challenge? Like how was it like a couple years ago? Was it early on? When did that happen, I guess?
Well, I think it evolved over the last 2 years. 19, he had a pretty good year. But they started attacking him up in the zone. And he was vulnerable up there. And I don't think he really had an approach for that pitch. He didn't, his thought process wasn't coherent to him. So he would revert back to, some basic stuff, just trying to stay relaxed, trying to hit it through the middle, keeping it really simple, but what he needed to do was find something more specific. And I think, it's not like guess hitting or anything or anticipation or anything like that. I think he really knew that he had to make a mechanical adjustment. And we identified that about a year and a half ago. And last year is a throwaway year for him. He was freaking hurt, man. Yeah. And 19, he was hurt too, but not so much where it affected his play. In 18, he got his shoulder. I mean, from like beginning of June. I mean, he shouldn't have played until September. But he tried to play in June. He tried to play in July. He kept trying to come back. I'm not sure if he re-aggravated it, but he couldn't swing the way he wanted to swing. So he never was able to develop, and implement any changes. He was just trying to play through pain.
You're just trying to survive. Yeah, you're just
trying to survive. So in 19, that's when the realization came that we had to make some adjustments. And we did it in the off season. I mean, I wasn't pushing him or, really hard. I just introduced him to these things. And he's, it's not that he was reluctant. He was absorbing it slowly. It's like you're chewing your food, enjoy it, take some time with it, so he would digest all this information, and then he just started to figure it out himself. He understood the high hand path. He understood the one move that he had to make to get there so that he would be in the slot early, not getting the foot down, actually starting to swing at the same time his foot was coming forward, and that was Big Poppy in his later years, trying to gain ground on the pitch, so he was trying to gain 6 inches, maybe 9 and 3 baseballs. That's what he was trying to gain out in front.